Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and in this video we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to create a contact component, and we're going to turn our object into an array of objects, and then we're going to iterate over that array, and we're going to output each of that data into our individual contact. So let's get going on that right now. Okay, so the last video was nice and easy, but in this one, we're going to be getting into a little bit more here where we're actually going to be iterating over an array. So let's go ahead and actually make this into an array. First by adding the correct bracket here, and now let's go ahead and add some more values into this array. So I'm going to copy this object, and have a comma, and I'm going to have Courtney here, and she's going to have a different phone number, but very fake as well. And let's add another one. We can add Tim, and let's add one more for good measure. We can add Jeff, and again, once again, totally fake, obviously different number, so we can have them tell them apart. So as you can see, we now have this array of contacts. So now that we have this array, what you're first going to notice is that our application is going to be completely broken. We're not going to have any contacts here. And it's because this is obviously looking for a single contact, an object. It's not going to find any sort of name property on an array of objects. So what we're going to need to do now is iterate over this list. But before we do that, let's actually create a new individual contact. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy this entire contacts list component, and I'm going to create a new file that is just going to be contact.js. So this is just contact, and I'm going to paste this in here. We're still going to be importing React from React, but contacts list is now going to be contact. And export contacts list is just going to be contact. Now in addition, I'm going to get rid of this unordered list, and I'm going to get rid of that starting unordered list as well. Now I can make this a little bit prettier, you could say. Okay, so we now we're importing React from React. We have class contact extends React components, and basically we're going to be outputting this.props.contacts.name. Now this whole section is going to be not totally right. If you think about it, we have an individual contact. We're not going to be wanting our props to be named. This particular prop, we don't want this to be named contacts because that implies that there's more than one. So let's get rid of that S there and say this.props.contact.name and this.props.contact.phone. So this is nice now because what we're essentially saying here is that this component, all it contains is a list item with this.props.contact.name. Okay, cool. So we have an individual component here, and now what we need to do is pass in that information into this component, and we need to do so for every single item in our array. Let's head to contacts list. Now, if you'll remember from previous videos, to use a component now with this import syntax, let's head back to app.js. You notice we had to import contacts list from contacts list. Let's copy this line and head to contactslist.js. Because we're going to be wanting to use our new contact component, we need to do something very similar. And since this is in the exact same folder, we can just use the same pattern to say import contact from the same folder. So we're now going to be importing our contact component from the same folder in the contact file. So this is all great. Now what we don't need is we don't need this entire line right here, because we have that now listed actually in our contact.js. But we can't simply just say contact like so and expect to have this working, especially if we do something like contact is equal to and then a value here. Because we have an array of objects, And actually, if we get rid of that contact equals, you'll see, well, we get some errors. It says cannot read property name of undefined. Obviously, it's looking for, inside of here, it's looking for name, but there's no such thing as this.props.contact. So obviously, it's not going to have anything there. So let's get around this. If you remember, we still have available to us in this contacts list, we have available to us, we have this.props.contacts. And what we can do is we can map over that. So inside of our unordered list here, let's have some curly brackets. Now let's type this dot props dot contacts with an S dot, and now we're going to use the map method here. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to have a function here. What we can do is actually use an arrow function. So we can just say parentheses like so, and we can say contact. Now what this .map does is essentially goes through each of the objects in the array here and will make each individual array item available to us as contact. Now we can have equals and then the greater than sign for our arrow function. Now this is where it gets kind of fun. We're going to have a set of curly brackets here like so, and inside of here we need to return. Now for this return statement, I'm going to put in our contact. So we're going to drop in our contact component, and we're going to set the prop value of contact is going to be equal to, and you might guess it, it's going to be this contact right here. So not to confuse this one with this one, this contact right here is going to be referred to inside of contact component as this.props.contact. So the individual contact data is going to be equal to, then we have the curly brackets, and it's actually passed in this data right here, which is going to be the individual item from this array right here. So this is why this is fun here, because now what we have is we have so many open and curly brackets. It might get sort of confusing, but we have to close it off curly and then parenthesis and then curly bracket. So there's this sort of a weird pattern here. But as you can see, we're passing in each individual contact into our contact component. Now if we save this, let's let the site rebuild itself. You can see it's interesting here. We now have all of our contact information output exactly as we wanted it to be. Now we are getting a warning saying that we need a unique key. Now this is something that React uses to identify individual items here. So what we want to do is head to app.js and let's add an ID to each of these. Now this ID is going to be a unique ID. However, since there's just these 4 items, I'm simply just going to count up to 4 here. So as you can see, they now all have a property of ID. And in our contacts list, we're going to head to our contact component, and in here we can say key, and key is going to be equal to contact.id. So the key is going to be referencing each individual contact's ID, which is essentially just 1 through 4 here. Now you'll see we refresh, we don't get any sort of warnings. And if you inspect any of these, let's go ahead and inspect Tim right here. You can even see that ID being used at this $, and we have no errors. So as you can see, we now have 3 components. We're passing that data into all 3 of them, and we're mapping over an array to get all this content output. I'm going to put that code up on the screen once again for contacts list.js. This part can get a little bit tricky if you mess something up, so make sure yours looks just like this and it will work just fine. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. If you have any questions or comments, if you comment the video, hit me up at Twitter or Facebook at Level Up Tutorials. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to help support the creation of these free tutorials, of which there are now over 800 of, if you want to support the creation of 800 some free tutorials and maybe 200 some more coming this year, head over to store.leveluptutorials.com and check out what's for sale over there. You can even purchase a subscription to Level Up Pro that gives you access to download each individual video if you would like. And upon the series conclusion, this site This entire series will be available to download as well with complete code examples. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.